Ron told me that I have to stop picking on people when I teach. So he said, specifically, he said not to pick on Blue Eyes, which I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. And but it was Frank Sinatra's old Blue Eyes, and I said something last week about Jay, about that. So I've had other people complain to me about my sense of humor. So I have no idea why anybody would complain about me, but some people have been, and I actually looked it up, and there is a thing. I forget the name of it, but there's this thing that kind of comes from the United Kingdom Celtic thing, and Linda and I actually did watch a movie last night that was made in the United Kingdom, and yep, they very sarcastic, very tend to pick on people they love. So I don't mean it to hurt your feelings. It means that I like you. So if I don't pick on you, you could actually realize that I don't like you. No, that's sarcastic. See, that's sarcasm. That's not true. But that's why you like me. See? Yeah, Celtic humor, right? So anyway, I just wanted you to know that if I say something inadvertently. And Linda's not here, so she's pretty much open game today. So, and she's like Ron. Ron, you won't get that email unless you actually check for email. Just wanted to let you know that. So, I was at a meeting this week. It's a Rotary meeting, and a person got up to teach about a federal class that they give in public schools, and it's to teach students how to become employable. And they teach them things like not to be late for work, and how to actually work when you go to work, and how to actually show up when you go to work, and things like that. And which is all quite foreign to me because, my father taught me all those things. But I realize in today's world that, in our broken homes, one of the songs mentioned broken homes, and it was really, it stuck out to me because I realize in the world that we have today with all the broken homes and the things that, it's an amazing amount of things that are not being taught. It's part of our society that we take for granted. But the woman made a comment. She said that they have homeless children that come to the class. And everybody, like a lot of people around the room, looked around the room like, well, how could you be homeless and go to school? How can you actually be homeless and go to school, And so somebody, one of the lawyers in the room shot up his hand and we don't get it, She goes, well, the government doesn't really consider you homeless. It's not like what we think about, like you're living underneath a bridge somewhere. The government considers you homeless if you're not actually sure where you're going to go home that night. Like if you're living with your mother, and this week this week or this month she's at her mother's house, but next month it might be at her boyfriend's house, and then a couple of weeks later it might be somewhere else, and so they consider that to be homeless. And she said, but we actually did have a couple of students in our class last year that actually lived in a tent, and she goes, so they were very homeless. And all of a sudden it just hit me, because when I was in 12 years old, things happen when you're 12 years old that you just think that just happen. You don't really think about why they're happening. So my mother and my sister and I, my sister was a couple years younger than I, we moved out of our apartment, out of this little house that we were renting, about 3 a.m. We packed everything up. We got up at 1 o'clock. We packed up everything, put it in the car, and in this little beat-up camper trailer, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we moved, and we drove from Orlando. Everybody knows where Orlando is, Disney World, right? And I lived there before there was Disney World. And, yep, there used to be a time when Disney World actually wasn't in Florida. And we drove about 5 hours to the Florida Keys. So you got to go through Miami and head down toward Key West. And then we just parked in the middle of a parking lot, a camping parking lot, and I went to school there. Out of this little camper tent, went to school there for about 5 months in Florida. No bathroom, no shower. We used the camping bathroom and shower. And so all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and there's a few people at my table, and it just hit me so much that I just blurted it out. I was like, wow, I was homeless, and I didn't know it. So, and then of course later on in life you realize my mother moved at 3 o'clock in the morning because we didn't have money to pay the rent, and she was just escaping. And so, the fact of the matter is that, if you're here today and you think, that your situation is really, really bad and the people around here can't relate to you. So many people come to me, and are hesitant actually to come into Linda and I for any advice or counseling because they think that we can't relate to them. That there's, we don't know where they're coming from. We've never been in their situation before, anything of that nature. And I just want to let you know, yeah, we probably have. And, God has brought us through a lot. And every step of the way, He kept His hand on us. Every step of the way. So I'm your ex-homeless guy today. So I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so we're in the best time of the year, right? Thank you, Adam. We are in the most wonderful time of the year. That's correct. And you can tell that because when you drive around, sarcasm's coming. When you drive around, you can tell we're at the most wonderful time of the year because everybody is so nice to each other. The drivers are so polite and considerate and everything, and instead of honking their horn in anger, they actually wave and say, "I love you," and people in lines. It's such a wonderful time of the year, and the thankfulness that comes out at Thanksgiving is incredible. How much thankfulness there are in the hearts of people. For it seems to me when I look around, people store it up for Thanksgiving. Like they complain the rest of the year, but when Thanksgiving comes, then they're like, okay, I'm going to let out all my Thanksgiving now, Apparently I live in a sheltered world somewhere. Yep. Why is that? Who is texting me? It's probably Adam, probably texting me in the middle. No, not this time. Probably. Why is that? At the time of the year when we should be at our best, we seem to be at our worst. Anybody have any idea? There's a thing about questions that we have. Faith doesn't eliminate our questions. It just tells us where we should be asking it. And I'm really a big believer in that. If you have a question, take it to God. He loves to answer your questions. He really does. And I went before the Lord with this because this is just weird. We should be really, it shouldn't be like this. This is the toughest time of the year for me. In my business, everything comes due in December. I get phone calls from government agencies, from nonprofit organizations. Everybody wants something before the end of the year because if they don't spend the money by December 31st, they lose their budget. They have to spend the money. I've actually had folks order things, pay for it, not get it, and then decide they don't want it later. I wish that happened a lot more often. That would be really great. Just send me a check. That's fine. Everything happens. And people, holiday cards? Wow. Like, I get orders for holiday cards right up to Christmas Eve. Right up to the last second. This is a very, very stressful time of the year for us. And I've been working really, really long hours this week and last week and the week before. And I worked yesterday, and I was in work yesterday. And I was at work yesterday and kind of feeling sorry for myself. Yep. I was actually sitting there kind of like a little bitter, like, I got to work. There's lots of things I got to do at home. Linda wants me to hang up lights around the windows, which I think is like a waste of time, but it's what she wants. So I got to hang up lights, and there's all this work to do, and I don't have any time to do it, and I'm at work. And while I'm at work, the consultant, this guy, this alliance that we hired to guide us along the way, this consultant that I pay really big money every month to advise me, sent me an email kind of insulting me. So I got really angry. Like, it just boiled up inside me, and I got really, really mad. And I mustered up all the sarcasm that I could possibly muster up and let him have it back. Yep. And one of his favorite things to end an email, or end a little thing, is he says, "Just saying." You know, yeah. Don't you love it? Just saying. You know, so he said what he wanted to say, and then he goes, "Just saying." So I copied what he wrote me, pasted it back up, and then put and read my little comments to his comments, which weren't very good. And then in the end, I wrote in red, capital letters, "Just saying." It didn't help. Exactly. Thank you, Kurt. It put wood on the fire. It didn't help. I got angrier and angrier. And I'm telling you, like a couple of hours went by, I was still angry. I was still mad. And this is what this is all about. This is a very stressful time of year. And instead of us being at our best, generally, what's really there comes out. What's really there comes out. Why is this happening? What's going on? I'm going to tell you, and that's what this is all about. People, if you read that email, I'm telling you that the power of God is grossly misunderstood by Christians. The power of God is grossly misunderstood by Christians today. When we think of the power of God, we think of healing. We think of some miraculous thing that happens. That's what we think about with the power of God. And I want to introduce two things together right now, as fast as I can, that we have it wrong. And why we lose it, and the world in general loses it, at the time of the year when we should be at our best. And here's the answer to that last part of the question, is that we have a finite level of patience, strength, goodness, self-control, love. We all have a finite level. Some of us have more than others. Some of us have it more than others. If you grew up in a household where you had parents that required you to be patient and not to lose your temper, you learned a certain finite level of these qualities. And you're probably a little bit better off than a household where they didn't teach those things. If you want to look out in the world and find out why this world is getting worse and worse and worse, it's because there's a general disregard for the truth and the Word of God. And as a result of that, it's not being taught, it's not being required, it's not being considered important. So people are growing up without patience, without love, without consideration. That's what they're growing up with. And so we find fights, all kinds of stuff happen. So, but the question is, well, how come this guy that lives 2 doors down from me, how come he is such a nice person? And he does such nice things, and he's not a Christian? Aren't Christians supposed to be better than they are? Aren't they? And yet he's such a nice person because he has a finite level of those qualities just like you do, only maybe his parents taught him it a little bit better than you did. We all have a finite level of those qualities. Everybody, unless they're completely given over to the enemy, everybody has a certain level of love and patience and self-control. But you reach your end under a certain stressful load. That's what basic training in the Army is all about. You can't take guys off the street and send them to war. You got to teach them patience. You got to teach them discipline. You got to get their strength up. You got to let some guy yell at them and have them stand there and take it. It's all about growing their character. It's not just about muscles. It's all about growing their character. Because the Army wants to raise that finite level of these qualities to a higher standard. So they become, I don't mind one of my kids goes in the Army because he's going to learn more patience, more endurance, more of these things than I could probably teach him at home. He'll learn that. But the bottom line is we all, I don't care how much of it you've learned, have a finite level of it. At some point, it runs out. At some point, it just runs out. I don't care how good you are. I don't care. Saturday afternoon, when I got that email, my love and patience ran out. And I said, if this guy steps in front of me right now, I'm going to smack him right in the head. You probably would like that, wouldn't you? Why is it your own kids want to see you fall, take a fall once in a while, right? We have a finite level. I want you to turn to a scripture, one of my favorite scriptures, so I know we've turned to it before, but I'm going to look at it in a little new way. Acts, chapter of Acts, book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 8. Book of Acts 1, verse 8. Jesus said to his disciples, Jesus said to them, "You shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you shall be my witnesses." You should be underlining the word power, and you should be underlining the word witnesses. He didn't say, you shall receive power, and you're going to heal everybody that you come in contact with. He didn't say that. Neither did Jesus heal everybody he came in contact with. He didn't say that. He said, somehow, with the power of God, you're going to become a witness for me. That's what he said. When we were worshiping today, the thought occurred to me, because of some of my own feelings this week, the thought occurred to me of that song from Mercy Me. It's like, who are we that he even takes thoughtful, is mindful of us? Who are we that he even thinks about us? But he does. He does. He loves us. And he loves us so much that he's willing to give us something to make us like him. That's power. You're not a Christian because you come to church any more than you're a car because you stand in your garage. That was in the email. Yep. You're not a Christian because you come to church any more than you're a car because you're standing in your garage. You are a Christian. God's purpose for you to become a Christian is for you to have power to be like him. Okay, now wait a minute. That's like, why didn't he just make us like that to begin with? Why didn't he just make us like that to begin with? I mean, wouldn't that have saved a lot of hassle? He made us purposely weak so that we would need him. He made us purposely weak so that we would need him. Because he loves us. He wants us to need him. That is so cool. You look through the Bible, I'm not going to take the time, but there's scriptures all over the place where God just says how weak we are. He goes, I'm not impressed with your strength. He says in one of the Psalms, I'm not impressed. God's not impressed with us. But he loves us. But he loves us. And he makes us weak so that we will ask for his power. Power. So, what kind of power does he give us? Power to, again, men and the word power. We're thinking of cubic inches. Yep. We were at Weight Watchers class last week. Yeah, Santa Claus doesn't go he. He goes ho, 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 you know. Power. You know, we were at Weight Watchers class yesterday, and this girl was talking about how wonderful ShopRite is because you can just go online and you can just place your order. And she goes, the little ShopRite man comes to your door. And I'm like, little ShopRite man? And I raised my hand. She goes, what? I said, I'm glad I don't work for ShopRite. She said, why? Because I would want to be known as the little ShopRite man. No guy wants to be known as little. We're strong. We're powerful, right? Right? We think of power. We think of power. Acts 1 verse 8, God's going to give us power to do what? To give us something he calls fruit. Such a wimpy word, fruit. Right? Fruit, it's a wimpy word. Who thinks of power? I don't think of a ripe pear as power. Who does? Right? fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, self-control. That's not power. There's no cubic inches in that stuff. There's no horsepower. There's no, I want stuff that, a man, I can relate to this stuff. Don't mess with me. I'm going to smack you. That's power. What kind of gun do you go hunting with? Well, I go hunting with a 44 Magnum. That's right. I'll use a cannon if they let me. That's men. And God says, I'm going to give you power. I'm going to give you love, joy, peace, patience. God, you got anything else in mind? Got something else there? And yet, when you think about it, what is it that we really want in this life? Well, look at it from a medical point of view. Anxiety medications, top 5 medications prescribed in the world. Top 5 medications in the world, anxiety medications. We want peace. We want to not be worried and anxious and fearful. You know what the number 1 prescribed medication is in this country, and it's not for why you think it is? Opiate painkillers. You know why there's so many of them being prescribed? Because people are asking for them regardless of whether they're in pain or not. And it's so easy for a doctor just to give it to them because it gets them out of their hair. And up until recently, you could go to 5 different doctors and get 5 different scripts. They didn't know that the other one had already given you a script for it. So that's why it's the number 1, because people are getting 5, 6, 10 different scripts for this medication. Why do people want that medication? Some want it to sell. Some want just to take it because it makes you feel good. It releases endorphins and all kinds of things. Why didn't God give us enough melatonin and things already in our brain so that we wouldn't want those things? Why? I often tell people, you shouldn't feel like you're some kind of, if you have a thyroid gland that's not producing enough medicine, enough hormone to make you operate at a proper level, you think nothing of going to the doctor and having a doctor give you some more of that, give you some Synthroid. But if you're not getting enough melatonin and you're feeling depressed and things, then there's something wrong with me. And so I often tell people, our bodies were really designed to live in a world that has a lot less stress than this world does. Like just 100 years ago, I wouldn't have known that there was a tsunami in the Philippines and thousands of people died. I wouldn't have never even known about it. But today, I'd learn about tragedies like that happen every day across the world. I read the paper this morning before I come over here. I was kind enough to share it with Marianne and Barbara about this young couple who literally baited a guy into a trap so they could kill him because they wanted to kill somebody together as a new married couple. And they killed him. The husband strangled him while the wife stabbed him. I'm like, this is a great thing to read before I come to church. I can pick up the paper every day and read crap and tragedies and things to worry about and things to be stressed out about. And then I got to go to work and everybody wants it right now. But God knew what the world was going to be like in the end times. And He knew how stressful the world was going to be. And He knew that I wasn't going to have enough melatonin to make it. Did I say it wrong? What? Melatonin? Serotonin. What's melatonin? Don't know. Whatever. I always get the details wrong. God knew that we weren't going to have enough to handle this world. So He wants to give us His power so that we can handle it. And when we can handle it, then suddenly we stand out as being completely different, as being the one in the line that is not trying to cut somebody off the line or letting somebody go in front of them, or being the car, or being the person that receives that bad email like I did yesterday and doesn't want to kill the guy. So, I didn't just put this teaching together this morning. I've been working on this all week, and so I said, okay, God, I know what you're trying to say here, so let's do this. I need your power. I need your power. So I'm going to combine this now with one other thing, and we're going to close with it. We read a couple weeks ago in James chapter 3 that James said that there's this 1 to 2 ounce little muscle in our body that controls your entire body. There's 1 to 2 ounce little muscle in your body that controls your entire body. And he said it's like the rudder of a ship, a little tiny thing, but it steers the ship. And it's called your tongue. And God's power works through your tongue. At least 8 of the 9 gifts of the Spirit involve the use of your tongue. At least 8 of the 9 gifts of the Spirit involve the use of your tongue. God's power coming out through your tongue. Very often, to express love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, involves the use of your tongue. And if it doesn't involve the use of your tongue, it at least steers the ship in the right direction. And God said many, many times in the Old Testament, if you want to come before me with thanksgiving. Steer the ship in the right direction. I wanted to pray for God to kill the guy. What I prayed was, thank you for sending him into my life. How many of you can honestly say that your prayers start out as a thankfulness to God for whatever it is you're going before prayer with? Be honest. Linda will yell out to me. So here's my Linda time. Linda will yell out to me. I'll be in the living room and she'll yell out something like this. She'll say, my arm, it's literally falling off. So I'm a guy. Her arm's falling off. So I run into the kitchen. Your arm's not falling off. Well, it hurts. So I'll say to her, but you said it was literally falling off. Do you know what the meaning of the word literal is? Now she's mad at me. Because rather than being concerned for her arm, I'm more concerned for her choice of language. So now she's getting mad at me for being disappointed that her arm's not falling off. We have been married 41 years, and if you could put a microphone in our house, I am sure we could sell lots of tapes of these conversations. They're really, when you look back on them, they're hilarious. They're not very hilarious at the moment. And after 15 minutes of this escalating into a thing where I don't love her, she claims, and I don't understand her, and I'm like, how did this all become my fault? You're the one that said your arm was falling off. Literally falling off. That I walk away from that, and I go into my room, and here's how I pray. Oh, God, this woman is killing me. You got to do something with her. Enter his courts with thanksgiving. God's merciful. He listens to us anyway. But such a small little thing can turn everything around. Had I go into prayer and thanking God for my wife, what a difference it would make, not whether he listens to me or not, but it makes a big difference here. Because that's what it does. It turns the ship. And just typical of God, every time He tells us or commands us to do something, it's actually good for us. It's actually good for us to be thankful when we don't want to be thankful. Because it causes us to be thankful. And causes us to start having power. I'm sorry it took so long. But sometimes just trying to give a perspective of why we should be thankful is enough. We've all heard that. We've heard it. I don't know how many of you got an email about Abraham Lincoln was the one that actually made Thanksgiving the holiday in our country. Did you know that? He's the one that said, from now on, we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving in our country. He did that during the Civil War, when thousands upon thousands of our young men were dying every day. And he said, we have a lot to be thankful for. But we could go on about perspectives all the times. But you and I, we lose it because we become familiar with one another. And when we become familiar with one another, we start learning each other's faults. And when we start learning each other's faults, we start looking at them a lot. I don't know why I'm pointing at you, Kurt. I just, I don't know why I'm doing that. And the last several, I'm not really good at criticism. That's why I responded to this guy so badly, because he criticized me. Of course, he did it to everybody that's on our board, so 12 people got to see it. But he criticized me, and it was constructive criticism. Can we just stop using that word, constructive criticism? Just let God do the work. And in the last few months, I have heard more complaints about this church than I think I have heard in the last 5 years. Right. Who could be complaining about this place? I know. Thank you. I have, not just about me, about everything. The music's too loud, the music's too soft, the nursery is that, and the nursery's this. You take too much leadership in meetings, you're not taking enough leadership in the meetings. There's too many new songs, there's not enough new songs. The heat, it's too cold, it's too hot, it's, you name it. I hear them all. Okay? And we're all shaking our heads, but really when I look around the room, almost all of us have had one for me, which is okay, but let's remember, this little thing steers the whole thing. So let's start learning how to encourage one another. I saw somebody encourage Darlene before the meeting today. Just walked up to her and just told her about her word last week. And you should have seen the look on her face. It would be like somebody handed her a $1,000 bill. And that's the effect it has. It's huge to encourage. It's really bad to criticize. It's harmful, generally. So here's what we used to do in the old days. We say, well, if you're going to do that, at least give somebody an encouragement first. Don't do that. Because here's what we started doing. Somebody come up with a compliment, right? Keith laughing. Someone come, what you did last week, that was a really good thing. And then you're going like, okay, what's coming next? Don't do that. Let God do the work in us. He's the parent here. Let God do the work. And go before Him with thankfulness. And realize you ain't got it because God wants to give you power so you can have it. And that's how we're going to be His witnesses.